The day the airplane fell from the sky was also the 3rd anniversary of my marriage to Khloe. For a while, she must have assumed I was just giving her the silent treatment again, a familiar pattern in our strained relationship. The reality, of course, was far simpler. I was already dead. It wasn't until Leo, the man she'd carried a torch for since college, suddenly needed a complex operation that she made any real effort to contact me. As it turned out, I was the only specialist in the city qualified to perform the surgery. Her messages started flooding my phone, a one-sided conversation filled with a frustration she felt was righteous. "I need you urgently," one read. "Stop being mad. Can we just agree it was my fault this time?" Another came through a few hours later, its tone sharper. "Alex, I'm offering you a way to make this up. Are you really not going to take it?" Then the threats began. "If you keep this up, I might not want to continue this marriage. Leo's condition is serious. It can't wait. I know you've always had a problem with him, but this is a matter of life and death. Can't you put your feelings aside for once?" That evening, her frantic attempts to reach me were interrupted by a call from the airline. They informed her that she would need to come the following day to identify the remains and personal effects of her husband. The moment the plane began its violent descent, my first instinct was to look at the seat beside me, but it was empty. Khloe, who had initially agreed to join me on a celebratory vacation to France, had backed out at the very last minute. Her reason was Leo. Just after he returned to town, I had excitedly sent her our flight details, but she had replied with a curt message telling me to cancel her ticket. She explained that Leo was sick and needed someone to look after him, and since she was his only real friend left in Wise City, the responsibility fell to her. She even mentioned, with a hint of nostalgic sadness, that the only reason she and Leo had drifted apart in the first place was because of pressure from their families. That night, I smoked one cigarette after another on the balcony, the smoke coiling into the cold air as I asked if she was certain about her choice. Without even lifting her head from the suitcase she was packing for him, she replied, "There are so many holidays, Alex. Do we really have to go on this specific one?" I tried to swallow the bitterness rising in my throat, managing a weak, frustrated smile. "Khloe, I cleared my entire schedule for this. I worked overtime for months, took on extra shifts, and attended so many late-night meetings that my stomach ulcer started bleeding again. How does any of that count as just another holiday?" She lowered her face, her anger suddenly flaring, and she smashed a small vanity mirror onto the floor. "Why must you be so petty? You're a grown man. You just don't want me to go see him." As the glass shattered, something inside of me broke along with it. She slammed the door on her way out of the bedroom. "Khloe," I called after her. "Some things, once they're gone, can't be undone." I made a move to stop her, but she never looked back. And now, there truly was no going back for any of us. I boarded the flight to France by myself. Halfway through the journey, the aircraft experienced a catastrophic failure. No one on board survived. Because the crash site was in a remote location, it took some time for the airline and international authorities to officially confirm my death. But my consciousness couldn't let go. Somehow, my spirit drifted back across the ocean, back to her. I was there on the day she went to see Leo. I floated in the passenger seat of her car, watching as she meticulously applied perfect makeup, her reflection smiling back at her. The smile she wore when she saw him was bright and genuine, a smile I hadn't seen directed at me in years. She arrived carrying a large pot of spare rib and corn soup, along with a carton of his favorite organic milk. When Leo frowned slightly from the discomfort of his illness, she rushed to his side, urging him to sit down and relax. I overheard Leo express some token concern. "Isn't this a bit inappropriate, you being a married woman and all? What kind of husband would be okay with this?" Khloe answered with a casual wave of her hand. He can't control me. Besides, you're my friend, and I'm just here to check on you. I've had enough of this marriage for years anyway. If he dares to complain, we can just get a divorce. It took me this long, this final, disembodied journey to understand that this was how she truly felt. I suddenly remembered her hesitant, "I do," on our wedding day. And it struck me that she hadn't smiled with that kind of unreserved joy in the entire 3 years of our marriage. Perhaps our union was a mistake from the very beginning. We never should have been together. She had always despised any physical contact from me, avoiding intimacy and rejecting every small gesture of affection. Looking back now, it seemed so obvious that she had been looking for a way out of our life together for a very long time. I watched for days as she remained by his side at the hospital. Then, one afternoon, after she returned from a long shift at his bedside, she learned from his doctors that I was the only surgeon in the region who could perform the necessary operation. That's when she began calling me relentlessly. A mechanical voice was the only reply she ever received. "The number you have dialed is temporarily unavailable. To leave a message, please press 1. Frustrated, she dialed again and again, her anger mounting with each failed attempt. Finally, she left a string of increasingly agitated voicemails. "I need you urgently. Stop being mad already. Can we just say it was my fault this time?" And, "Alex, I'm giving you a chance to make up for how you've been acting. Don't forget you were the one who pursued me first. If you keep this up, I might not want to continue this." Her final message was a demand. "Call me back. Leo's condition can't wait. I know you've always had issues with him, but this is life or death. Can you put that aside?" Naturally, I never responded. I watched her pace around her apartment, so upset she looked like she might break something, until she remembered she wasn't at our home. She started chewing her nails, a nervous habit I hadn't seen in years. Leo tried to calm her down, and once she settled a little, she offered to go to his place to make him more of her homemade soup and other meals. Halfway through preparing the ingredients in his kitchen, her phone rang. Khloe dashed over to answer it, giving Leo a reassuring look over her shoulder. "Hello? I thought you were dead. Why haven't you picked up your phone in so long?" she complained into the receiver. A calm, professional voice on the other end replied, "Is this Miss Khloe? It seems you haven't seen the news. We are very sorry to inform you." I saw the expression on Khloe's face shift from irritation to confusion. "Is this some kind of new scam? Trying to sell insurance this way?" She sounded baffled, but didn't believe a word of it, assuming it was just an unusually morbid marketing call. It wasn't until they confirmed her identity and mentioned the specific flight from a few days ago that the reality began to sink in. She hung up abruptly and rushed to her laptop, her hands shaking as she typed. The screen soon displayed a news report, a stark black and white image that matched the ticket information I had sent her. Her face went completely pale. She picked up her phone and dialed a number I recognized instantly. It was my colleague and best friend, Sam. When Sam answered, she immediately demanded, "Where's Alex?" "Khloe, you didn't hear?" Sam sounded startled by her tone. "What are you talking about? What kind of game are you two playing now? Tell him this is his last chance. He needs to call me back. There's something important." "He can't anymore." Sam's voice turned cold and hard. I knew it. "You two must be together somewhere, laughing at me," she retorted. "No, seriously. You have a way of jinxing people, you know that?" Sam laughed, but it was a bitter, painful sound. "How could you possibly not know your own husband is gone? And now you're wishing the same on his friend? Unbelievable!" I had always thought of Sam as a kind and meticulous person, always efficient and professional at work. I had never seen him speak with such a sharp tongue. He knew how much I cherished Khloe, so he had always been polite and respectful towards her, despite his reservations. By the way, Sam continued, his voice dripping with sarcasm, I heard your old classmate Leo might be back in town. You wouldn't happen to be at his place right now, would you? I warned Alex before you got married that you weren't a good woman. But he was so stubborn. He insisted on marrying you. And now look what's happened. He's practically ruined because of it. Do you even have a conscience, Khloe? She was so enraged she couldn't stop herself from smashing a glass she was holding. It seemed she was more bothered by Sam's harsh words than by the actual news of my death. Turns out they're all just a bunch of fair-weather friends, she muttered. After breaking the glass, she turned to see Leo clutching his chest. What's wrong? Is it chest pains again? She asked, her voice filled with anxiety. A fine sweat had appeared on Leo's forehead. He shook his head slightly. I know my own condition. Don't worry too much. If it comes to it, I guess it's just my fate. No way! I'm calling a specialist for you right now. Looking at her, so consumed with worry and care for him, she appeared like a complete stranger to me. She had never lost her composure like this in my presence. Only anything related to Leo seemed to bring out this intense emotion in her. My life or death apparently didn't matter as much as his current condition. Before I got on that plane, I had held on to a sliver of hope that she might reconsider and come to find me at the airport. I even sent her a screenshot of the boarding gate and my ticket just before takeoff. But when I turned on airplane mode, there was nothing from her. No response in our chat history. She was probably busy picking out his breakfast at that very moment. 10 years on, and she still remembered he loved milk. She brought him soup made with rib broth, perfectly suited to his taste. My own preferences, however, were never a priority for her. After loving her for all these years, what was I really hoping for? Suddenly, I felt pathetic. Only now did I realize that her heart was a place I could never warm up. Tomorrow she'll probably be completely emotionless when she confirms my death with her own eyes. Thinking this, the once painful spot in my heart felt like it had opened up, leaving only a hollow emptiness. I could watch them together now without feeling anything at all, not a single trace of emotion. After the call, Khloe continued to simmer the ribs on the stove for Leo. She wore a cartoon kitten apron, her hair half tied up, and she carefully tasted a piece of meat as she prepared the table. It looked quite appetizing. I remembered how she once claimed she couldn't cook, which made me laugh at the time. It turns out it just depends on who she's cooking for. Taste these ribs, she said, placing a few in Leo's bowl. Tell me if they're cooked well. They exchanged a smile, and to any outsider, they would have looked like a loving couple. Over the past 3 years, I had tailored hundreds of recipes to her tastes. Even though our friends always praised my cooking, I never once saw her smile like that at our dinner table. Last time you said it was a bit tough, so I researched the right heat and simmering techniques for ages, she explained. She then frowned, rummaging through her bag. What are you looking for? He asked. Oh, nothing. Just dry hands. I need some lotion, she smiled, applying a thick layer of the expensive hand lotion I had bought for her after noticing she had issues with dry skin. I had never let her near the kitchen sink, taking care of all the housework myself. But now, I found out she was more than willing to do it for someone else. After their meal, Leo handed Khloe a pair of waterproof gloves, saying it would help keep her hands from getting wet while she did the dishes. I saw Khloe's smile, though it stiffened for just a moment. On her way home that night, her hands, after being in water, started to peel and turn red. She rushed to the cabinet upon arriving at our empty apartment, searching for the first aid kit. She pulled out a bunch of medicines, but none seemed to be the specific cream I usually gave her. Finally, she grabbed a random one, applying it and enduring the stinging pain until it took effect, relaxing her tense eyebrows. She suddenly noticed a small sticky note in my handwriting on the box. If your hands feel uncomfortable, use this twice daily. Avoid contact with water. She stared at the note for a long time, then scoffed. A plane crash, huh? Fine. Tomorrow I'll see what kind of trick you're pulling. Khloe refused to believe what the airline and Sam had told her. Even if it were true, she seemed to think it was just another one of my elaborate schemes to get her attention. She fully intended to drive over to the address the airline gave her that day to expose what she believed was my lie. But before she could even get in her car, she got a call that immediately made her anxious. I didn't need to guess. The call was definitely from Leo. I sat in the passenger seat, an unseen observer, watching her run several red lights to get to his house. When she finally stopped and opened his front door, she found him curled up on the floor. "Leo, are you okay? Don't scare me like that." She tried to lift him, but her petite frame couldn't support his weight. She called an ambulance and followed it to the main city hospital. Instead of waiting anxiously outside the emergency room, however, she took a detour past my office, peeking inside. Unfortunately for her, one of my colleagues was in there, not me. My desk was clean and empty. A nurse soon approached to inform her that the patient had passed the critical stage and was being transferred to a standard room. In the room, Leo slowly awoke, moved by her presence. "If you hadn't come, I don't know what I would have done," he said weakly. "Don't say that," Khloe replied, handing him a glass of water. Leo noticed her distraction. "What are you thinking about?" "Nothing. I just didn't sleep well last night." Khloe smiled faintly. "Ah, was it me bothering you?" Leo hesitated, then suggested, "There's room on the bed since it's wide enough. Why don't you lie down and get some rest?" His ears turned red as he spoke. Unexpectedly, Khloe declined immediately. Seeing his awkward expression, she quickly deflected. "Drink some water first. I'll cut you an apple. The doctor says you need to have vitamins every day." Leo took the water, sipping it slowly. But she couldn't even take care of herself, let alone perform these simple tasks. Sure enough, I saw her cut her finger with the paring knife. After a low gasp, she noticed Leo hadn't seen it, so she quietly wrapped it with a paper towel and handed the peeled apple to him. Leo glanced at the apple, saw that most of its flesh had been clumsily removed, and immediately burst into laughter. "Khloe, it's surprising how bad your fruit peeling skills still are after all these years." Khloe tried to laugh along, but her smile seemed forced and awkward. Back when I was around, she never had to do anything. She'd just ask, and it was done for her. I peeled shrimp and placed them on her plate. I sliced fruit and served it to her on a platter. I made everything seem like a normal part of her life. Once she made me a bowl of instant noodles when I returned late from the hospital, completely famished, and I was so touched I treated it like a gourmet meal. I had always kept her on a pedestal. Now, being teased by him, she probably felt embarrassed. After Leo finished the apple, the two started chatting about old times. When the topic of Khloe and my marriage came up, Leo suddenly sat up, held her hand, and said, "I really liked you back then. If I had been more proactive, do you think I might have had a chance to stand by your side?" His words were full of regret, and even I, in my spectral state, felt a bit moved listening, but Khloe let out a loud cry of pain, startled. Leo quickly let go, and noticed the wrapped wound on her hand was now bleeding again from the pressure. "Oh, I'm so sorry, Khloe. I didn't notice. Did you do this while peeling the apple?" He apologized frantically, and in his frustration, gave himself a couple of light slaps on the face. Despite his delayed realization of her injury, Khloe chose to forgive him because of his apparent sincerity. She called a nurse to dress the wound properly, then turned to comfort the man who was all teary-eyed and full of self-blame. I knew she couldn't stand to see Leo cry. Once, when she had wanted a divorce and I pleaded with her, she told me coldly, "I hate men who cry the most." But Leo was the exception to every one of her rules. Even if she knew she shouldn't, She would stay on the phone with him all night if he called saying he couldn't sleep. If Leo had asked her to stay with him this time, I'm sure she would have agreed. Yet, I saw a change in Khloe's expression. Her tired eyes showed a hint of profound fatigue, and she quietly refused. "It's late. I'll come see you tomorrow." Leo seemed a bit surprised at her response, but didn't press the issue. "Okay, get some rest then." Watching her press her temples on the way back home, I knew her insomnia-induced migraines were acting up again. Ever since we had been together, I had known about her serious insomnia. For someone with a chronic condition like hers, it affects every aspect of daily life, even if others might see it as just a minor problem. I had seen her break down emotionally from lack of sleep many times, even becoming depressed. That's why, apart from the special hand cream, our home was filled with things to help with her insomnia. Under my care, her condition had actually improved a lot. But as soon as I was gone, her symptoms returned with a vengeance. After all, who else would willingly lose sleep at night just to use fairy tales to calm a grown adult? 20 minutes later, Khloe returned to our dark home. In the dim, unlit room, the dark circles under her eyes were even more noticeable. After washing up, she changed into her silk pajamas, put on her eye mask and earplugs, and lay down in bed. But it wasn't long before she shot up, took a deep breath, and then lay down on her side, muttering something to herself. I could guess she was counting sheep. I had told her many times that at her level of insomnia, counting sheep was useless. Soon enough, she grew restless again. Turning on the nightlight, she opened a bottle of melatonin from the nightstand and popped 2 pills into her mouth. Worried it wasn't enough, she grabbed another handful and stuffed them in her mouth. If I had been alive to see this, I would have been both angry and terrified. I bought all our medications and knew the side effects of taking too much melatonin. This just showed how desperate she was. Indeed, after about 3 hours of what seemed to be sound sleep, Khloe suddenly got out of bed and rushed to the bathroom. I could hear her throwing up violently, yet I felt a twisted satisfaction in hearing it. "Throw up," I thought. "It makes me feel better knowing you're suffering like this." Watching her pale face as she returned to bed, I felt an odd sense of joy. Once she was back in bed, it seemed she gave up on trying to sleep. The phone's light shone brightly in the darkness. She opened the voice memo app. Seeing the list of files, I remembered. I had once taken her phone and recorded myself reading bedtime stories for her. After she tapped on one, my own voice played softly and clearly. The little rabbit and the turtle were racing in the forest. They invited many forest friends to be their judges, but the monkey judge got lost, and they waited and waited, only seeing him after a long, long time. It was my own recording. I found it nauseating now. Back then, my only focus was on ensuring she could sleep well. Now, every one of those recordings felt like proof of my foolish past. All my heartfelt efforts had gone to waste. And finally, Prince Glory welcomed his princess. They would hold a grand wedding at the castle. As the third recording ended, Khloe's long lashes lowered, and her breaths became soft and steady. She was finally asleep. A few hours later, the morning sunbeam lit up the balcony. Khloe was still asleep when her phone's ringtone broke the tranquility of the room. Annoyed, she rubbed her eyes and answered. I heard Leo's voice on the other end. "Khloe, did I disturb your rest?" he asked cautiously. "No," Khloe replied, rubbing her forehead. "What's up?" "I had some boxed lunch from the hospital today, and suddenly I'm really craving some of that rib soup you used to make," he said. He didn't hear a response, so he quickly added, "It's no big deal, honestly. If it's too much trouble, just forget I mentioned it. It's just, your cooking is so good it spoiled me." As I expected, Khloe didn't turn him down. She quickly changed, grabbed her keys, and headed out the door. I was a bit puzzled. Wasn't she going to make soup? Instead, Khloe went to a well-known restaurant, ordered their signature rib soup to go, and took it straight to the hospital. That's when it hit me. She was worried Leo might get hungry and couldn't wait for her to cook, so she bought some for him instead. Sam was right. I was totally blinded by love back then. He had told me Khloe had a crush on Leo for years. When I asked her about it, she insisted they were just old friends, and I believed her. I even made Sam apologize to her, which led to an incredibly awkward situation for all three of us. But these days, it's as clear as day. If it weren't for me, they might have gotten together a long time ago. It was only because of our family's business ties that she didn't want to tarnish our marriage's public image and kept her feelings to herself all this time. Getting to the hospital took less than 30 minutes. Leo knew Khloe couldn't say no to him. As soon as he got the soup, he started sipping it with a contented smile. After a sip, though, he looked puzzled. "Why does it taste different from the one you made at my place?" Khloe glanced at her watch and said nonchalantly, "Oh, I got it from a restaurant." Leo looked visibly disappointed, but forced a smile. "It's still good, though, just missing that homemade touch." Khloe frowned a bit. "As long as it's nutritious, right? I mean, my cooking isn't that great anyway." Leo seemed taken aback, as if he'd never seen this side of her before. Realizing her slip, Khloe added quietly, "I have dry hand syndrome. It gets worse when my hands are in water a lot." Then she placed a business card on the table. "Here's the delivery number for that restaurant. Next time, just order it yourself." Not waiting for his reaction, she said she had someplace to be and left quickly. But she didn't leave the hospital. Instead, she sought out a nurse to ask some questions. I remembered she had mentioned finding a consultant for Leo before, so I followed her to a waiting room. All I could do was chuckle to myself. She probably didn't know that in this entire hospital, besides me, no one could perform such a complicated surgery. Let's see what kind of expert she managed to find. As the office door opened, I instantly recognized the voice inside. I looked up and saw it was the neurology department. Isn't that where Sam works? When he saw her, Sam didn't look surprised at all. He joked, "Khloe, what's up? Did you lose your mind or something?" "You?" Khloe's face turned red with anger. Seeing her frustration, Sam looked puzzled. "Not here for a checkup, then? Why are you here? Oh, and be mindful of your location when you talk." Khloe was already in a huff, and her questions came out harsh. "Where is he?" Sam knew exactly who she meant, but played coy. "Told you, didn't I? He's dead." Seeing her lingering doubt, he added, "If you really don't believe me, go ask at the airport. See if Alex was on that plane when it went down. Or is it that you're just scared?" Sam knew just what button to push. "Scared of what?" Khloe shot back instinctively, but she looked like she'd had enough and closed her eyes. "Forget it. I won't argue with you. Just tell him to go home. I'll explain everything to him later. There's nothing going on with Leo and me. I heard him out once before as a friend, and now I just want to help him." I saw the vein on Sam's temple pulse as he seemed to hear the most ridiculous joke of his life. He burst out laughing for a moment before his expression turned sharp. "Heard him out before, you say? And your husband, who suffered day in and day out because of you, does he not matter? Have you ever once asked about his pain, his suffering, his endurance?" "What did I do to him?" she asked, genuinely confused. "He's a regular at our gastroenterology department. You didn't know that, did you?" Sam paused, noticing Khloe's bewildered look, and scoffed. "You don't even know if he's dead or alive. Why would you care about a little internal bleeding? For a moment, just consider this. Had you ever tried to properly live with him, he wouldn't have needed to drown his sorrows and drink daily." Looking at the stunned woman before him, Sam sighed deeply. "You really do treat that jerk like a treasure, Khloe. Maybe you should get to know exactly what your crush has been up to before placing him on such a high pedestal." Khloe had no idea, but I knew a little. I had once hired a private investigator to dig into Leo's past. She had found the report, and we had a huge fight that night. Before I could even finish reading the first page, she snatched it away and hid it. Back then, I tried to warn her that Leo wasn't a good man. Khloe looked hesitant, but defended him fiercely. I know what he's like better than you do. On graduation day, I got cornered by those thugs in an alley, and if it wasn't for him stepping in, I don't know what would have happened to me. So that's how it is, Sam said, seeming to have figured something out. Looks like you've been fooled for years. He whipped out his phone to show her his old chats. These are the texts he sent when he borrowed money from me. Everyone in our class knew, even his own circle. This kid loves to get money off of innocent rich girls, using his heart condition for sympathy. And some of those thugs you mentioned? They were seen smoking and gaming with him at an internet cafe just a few days later. You wouldn't have guessed that, would you? Khloe couldn't believe it. No way. He was beaten half to death. Plus, he had a heart condition. They wouldn't dare risk it. Round and round. It's still those 3 words, Sam sighed. You don't believe it. He spread his hands as if to say, if you're not going to believe what you should, and you insist on fooling yourself with what you shouldn't, I've got nothing more to say. When Sam showed her out, Khloe had a complicated look on her face. I watched as she got into her car and set her GPS for the Wise City International Airport. This moment had to come eventually. There were still quite a few reporters lingering near the airport, but they were all blocked outside the main entrance and couldn't get in. Khloe went straight to the information desk. After she asked her question, the standard professional smile disappeared from the staff member's face, replaced by a look of profound grief as they led her to a large conference room. As the door opened, the room was filled with the sounds of crying and wailing. Maria walked to a spot marked with the number 23. On the table was a piece of white paper and a sealed black package. She started shaking all over, as if she were simultaneously nervous and terrified. I chuckled to myself. What kind of show was she putting on now? If I had really died, wouldn't she be the one who was happiest? Amid the silence, a few officials arrived. The man leading them looked older, perhaps a member of the airport management team. Since we couldn't wait any longer for you to arrive, the remains were sent to the main city hospital a few days ago for preservation, he explained gently. When Khloe didn't react, another woman slowly added that they had tried to contact my parents, but they were abroad and couldn't get in touch to understand the situation in time. These are the last belongings of your husband, collected against his identification, she said as they expressed their official condolences. These are Alex's? Khloe asked, looking completely lost. The officials exchanged confused glances before confirming again that all the paperwork was there, in black and white. Finally, she seemed to believe it. I had indeed died in a plane crash on the very day we had planned to be in France celebrating our wedding anniversary. She opened the black package. Inside were our marriage certificate and a completely worn-out leather wallet. That marriage certificate contained the only photograph of us together. She seemed incredulous as she flipped open the wallet. Besides a bank card and my ID, there was still that red-backed photo of us from the day we registered our marriage. What had been a calm disbelief before now turned into frantic denial as she kept repeating, "Impossible! Impossible!" Then, she suddenly closed her eyes and collapsed. The scene turned chaotic. Medical staff rushed over, placing her on a stretcher for an examination. Throughout it all, she kept clutching that damaged photo in her hand. I looked at it and thought it was a real eyesore. People always say that marriage is the grave of love. But maybe from the very start, from the day I fell in love with her, from the day she agreed to marry me, I, Alex, was already dead. When Khloe woke up, she went to claim my remains at the main city hospital. As she walked out of the morgue, she ran into Sam, who had heard the news of her collapse. He didn't seem to notice how pale and fragile she looked, and just kept mocking her. "Are you acting again? Isn't this what you wanted all along? To be rid of him? Now you can get away clean and go find that guy of yours." But this time, no matter how much venom he spewed or how nasty his words got, Khloe seemed completely numb, just staring at our marriage certificate photo. Sam eventually got bored of the one-sided confrontation and left. She didn't show up on the day of my funeral. I don't know if she didn't dare to come, or if she just thought it was pointless. My mom went to find her afterward. That gentle, kind woman tried to console her, saying my death was an accident and that no one was to blame. But those words seemed to trigger something in Khloe, making her break down and cry, begging my mom to forgive her. The two women I had once loved most in the world ended up crying together. In reality, my mom had some resentment inside her. She knew Khloe wasn't as good to me as I always made her out to be, but I had always spoken so highly of my wife to her, protecting her image so fiercely that my mom had always been accepting and kind. Seeing my mom cry such heartbreaking tears made me feel an immense wave of sadness and regret. A white-haired person sending off a black-haired one. In this life, I had failed to be a good son. I was so focused on Khloe in the latter half of my life that I didn't even realize my mom's hair had gotten so much grayer. Before leaving, my mom asked Khloe if I had left behind any personal items or last words. Khloe seemed jolted by a thought, but remained silent. My mom left, disappointed. After she was gone, Khloe turned on her phone, scrolled all the way to the bottom of our message history, and finally found my last unread messages to her. Lately, her insomnia seemed to have worsened considerably. I saw her go for days without any sleep, only able to find a few hours of peaceful rest after listening to my recorded voice notes. It serves her right. Maybe she'll just drive herself crazy. I watched her pathetic act from the corner of the room and felt disgusted, especially when she listened to the last message on the list. It was a recording of her own soft breathing while she slept, followed by my quiet whisper, "Good night." That simple recording seemed to push her over the edge. She was tormented by migraines, looking pale and puffy-eyed, just like the ghostly women from the horror movies we used to watch together. She used to scoff at women in films who were so dumb they'd die and come back to haunt men over love. "This is all just what TV shows made up," she would say. But looking at her now, she wasn't much different. Leo called her a few times, but Khloe hung up on him each time. Finally, he resorted to showing up at her door. When she opened it, Leo was shocked. She looked more like a patient at death's door than the vibrant woman he knew. He was worried sick for her. He announced that he had bought some groceries to take care of her, and even made the effort to get fresh shrimp and crabs early in the morning. Judging by the half-finished state of the ingredients in the kitchen, he was clearly not much of a cook. Khloe treated him like he was invisible from start to finish. "Wow, Khloe! When was the last time you cleaned out your fridge?" Leo exclaimed, snapping her out of her daze as he pulled out a large storage box. She snatched it away from him. A small pink sticky note was attached to the lid. I suddenly remembered. There were still some bento meals and snacks I had prepped for her in the fridge before I left, but considering a week had passed, they had surely gone bad by now. No matter how well you store something, once it's past its shelf life, it's going to rot. She acted like she had found some long-lost treasure, rummaging through everything in the fridge. Mapo tofu, spicy boiled meat, potato chicken wings. I had carefully wrapped all these dishes with cling wrap and noted their shelf lives on each one. Preparing them had taken me several days. Seeing all this good food go to waste just felt like such a shame. "Khloe, what are you doing? This is spoiled. You can't eat it?" A startled voice echoed. I turned to see Khloe with tears streaming down her face, stuffing the cold chicken wings into her mouth with her bare hands. He dragged her to the kitchen sink and had her drink a bunch of salt water until she threw up all the spoiled food. I was starting to wonder if she hadn't slept in so long that her brain had fried. Leo seemed to share my doubts. He felt Khloe's forehead, but she wasn't running a fever. He figured she was just starving and brought her to the dining table. Khloe stared blankly at the peeled crabs and shrimp placed before her, then looked up at the man with a face full of self-satisfaction. "Did you make this yourself?" "Sure did. Go on, eat. I know you must be hungry." The next moment, to Leo's complete shock, she shoved all the plates off the table. Ceramic shattered everywhere, and the red oil from the seafood seeped into the white carpet, leaving a sinister streak. "What the hell is wrong with you?" Watching him jump up in anger, Khloe forced a bitter smile. "You didn't know I'm allergic to seafood, or do you just think I deserve to die too?" Leo felt a bit guilty hearing the first part, but by the end, he was convinced she was seriously messed up. He patiently cleaned up the mess and went quietly to make her a simple bowl of noodles. He tried to feed them to her, but she turned her nose up at it. "It's too bland. My tastes are strong. I can't eat this." Leo couldn't hold back his anger anymore. "You think you're some kind of princess? If I didn't need you for the surgery, I wouldn't be here cooking for you and dealing with your picky nonsense. Are you serious?" Khloe wasn't surprised by his change in attitude. "Yes, I don't have the life of a princess, but I certainly act like one," she said calmly. "And I can't help you. The only doctor who could save you was my husband. And where is he? He's dead." Leo didn't believe her until she showed him that white paper with my certificate of death and her signature at the bottom. "See? Most people wouldn't put up with me, but he was patient enough to make my useless recipes and cook for me every single day. He remembered that my tastes leaned heavy and was always willing to eat hot pot with me, although he'd get sick every time. Such an idiot. I'd always scare him by threatening divorce, but sometimes I just liked bullying him. So, am I really that terrible?" She rambled on, oblivious to the storm brewing in Leo's eyes. When Khloe asked him to leave, Leo refused. She then saw that the phone she had just placed on the table was now in his hand. "If you cooperate, everything will be fine," he said smoothly. "Didn't peg you for someone who enjoys kids' stories." Khloe's eyes narrowed. "Give me back my phone." Leo did hand it back, but her voice memo list was now completely blank. As if he knew what she'd ask next, Leo spoke first. "Man, the stuff that guy said was disgusting. So I deleted it all for you." "Get out!" Khloe summoned strength from who knows where, charged at Leo, and slapped him hard across the face. After taking the slap, Leo's face twisted with fury. He grabbed her arm as she tried to swing again and slapped her back with brutal force. Khloe fell unconscious. I watched the entire altercation from above. Leo quickly tied her up. The swell on Khloe's face grew, distorting her once radiant features into ones of sheer disgrace. I couldn't help but find it all amusing. "Oh, Khloe, should I say you're blind to the truth? I almost wish you hadn't passed out, just so you could see how vicious the man you idolized and loved for so long could truly be." Before long, Khloe came to. She was in the same place, still in our home. The man on the couch was scrolling through his phone. He walked over with a knife once he saw she was awake. "Don't push me, Khloe. I just want to stay alive," he said, pressing the blade to her neck. He forced her to transfer money from her bank accounts, but the amounts didn't satisfy him, so he leaned the knife in closer. "If that other chick's dad hadn't gone bankrupt back then, I wouldn't have come back to you anyway. For years, your temperament has been the worst I've ever seen in any woman. But thankfully, your looks and figure are still nice." Victor smirked, his hand reaching towards her chest. There was one thing I had always assumed she knew. When Khloe's family nearly went bankrupt, I asked my parents to help them. When Sam mentioned Leo was after her for her family money, I paid him off to leave town. Leo took the money and immediately went after the daughter of a major corporation's CEO. When our families discussed a business partnership and hit it off, they decided to pair me and her together. That's why she always thought my family had forced the marriage on her. Had I known your family would get rich again, I wouldn't have taken that money back then. That was a big mistake. Leo sounded a bit regretful. I'm going to find someone abroad to treat me since I can't find a doctor here. Don't worry. Once I get the money, I won't bother you again. Someone like you, who lied and caused all this misery, should suffer. You're dying now and that's your karma. Khloe glared at him and spat those words. You better not test me. Do what I said. I can't guarantee your safety, Leo said, waving the knife threateningly at her. Khloe was forced to text her parents that she had been kidnapped and a ransom was needed. To make it seem real, Leo even made her take a selfie in her bound state and send it. But I noticed that just as she took the selfie, Khloe pressed the side button and the volume key at the same time. This was a trick I had taught her long ago: how to send a silent emergency text to her primary contact. But the next second, the flicker of light in her eyes faded. It seemed she remembered that the emergency contact, which was me, was now gone. There was no one left to save her now. Khloe's parents agreed to the deal. They planned to meet at the pond by the community gate the next morning to hand over the money in exchange for her. Soon, night fell. For insomniacs, nighttime is no different than day, but regular folks can't stay awake for long. Just when Leo couldn't help but close his eyes and doze off, the front door was unlocked from the outside. He woke up quickly, but the people who entered were quicker. A swarm of police officers surrounded him, and behind them stood Sam and Khloe's parents. One small knife was no match for countless gun barrels, especially for someone so afraid to die. After the police took Leo away, Sam left quietly, seeing that the matter was resolved. Khloe's parents hugged her, crying in lingering fear. They were heartbroken that she had just lost her husband and had now faced this terrifying ordeal. They insisted on staying with her, but Khloe firmly refused. Too much has happened recently. I just want some peace and quiet, alone. I knew she saw the emergency text she had sent pop up on their phones, another piece of my previous handiwork. I could clearly see the guilt and deep regret etched on her face. That's good. The more guilty she feels, the more sleepless nights await her. Let her live with the guilt of my death day and night. What I didn't expect was her first act of freedom. She went straight to a phone repair shop to try and recover the backup data. Maybe my silent prayers were heard, because the voice memos Leo had deleted couldn't be restored for some technical reason. I'm satisfied with this outcome. Her look of extreme disappointment is exactly what I had hoped for. I've always said once something is lost, it's gone for good. Just like this phone data, and just like her and me. We're supposed to be accountable for our actions in this life. She stumbled back home. Without those recordings, she couldn't sleep at all anymore. Before, she could at least manage a few hours of peace. Now, constant insomnia felt like a curse. It made her migraines worse, and she tried all sorts of remedies. But nothing worked. The severe lack of rest made her mood even more erratic. Her mom, seeing her state, took her to the hospital for a full checkup, including a visit to the psychiatry department. The result was a diagnosis of severe depression. She ignored the tears her parents wiped away, and the clumps of hair that fell as they gently brushed it. She started searching the house for any trace of my existence. Even a piece of chocolate I had once put in her bag was kept like a precious treasure. But more often, during the long, sleepless nights, she started banging her head against the wall, as if the physical pain could somehow make her feel better. Neighbors came over countless times, knocking on the door to complain about the noise. Her parents apologized every evening and softly tried to explain. Eventually, everyone in the building just got used to it. Until one day, news came from the police station. Leo was sentenced to over 15 years in prison for his previous large-scale fraud schemes and for the kidnapping this time.